begin as our new tradition of all the branches with lift every voice and sing. So tech team, you're on.
Okay, give me a second.
Marion, I've got it already.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I hope.
Paul?
Request all those.
Thank you, tech team. It's such a powerful rendition, especially with John Bigger's mural in the background. So welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our moment in history speaker for today. That's Dr. Shirley Weber. Shirley Nash Weber was elected in November 2012 to represent California's 79th Assembly District, which includes the cities of Bonita, Chula Vista, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, National City, and San Diego. Shirley was born to sharecroppers in Hope, Arkansas, but she's lived in California since the age of 3. She attended UCLA, where she received her BA, MA, and PhD degrees by the age of 26. Child prodigy, right? Prior to receiving the doctorate, she became a professor at San Diego State University at the age of 23. She taught at California State University of Los Angeles and Los Angeles City College in addition. While she was at San Diego State, she was the chair of the African American Studies Department and helped establish it in 1972. She's a past president of the National Council for Black Studies from 2002 to 2006. She currently chairs the Assembly Budget Subcommittee on Public Safety, and she also serves as the member of the Assembly Standing Committee on Education, Higher Education, Elections, Budget, and Banking and Finance. And she's the chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, which has 10 members. She taught at San Diego State for 40 years. Prior to being elected to the Assembly, she served on the Mayor's Committee on Equal Opportunity and served in a number of other boards. She's the first African American to be elected to a California legislature south of the city of Los Angeles. She's been instrumental in establishing an ethnic studies requirement in the state of California, as well as a reparations bill. And she's currently fighting to repeal some of the anti-affirmative action legislation that's been passed in California. All this is very important, but her most important contribution is that she was the wedding planner for Carol and my wedding in 2001. And that marriage has continued, so that just shows what a great contributor she is to Black families and social justice. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Shirley Weber.
Well, first of all, thank you, Jim. Thanks for waking me up this morning. I'm on the West Coast, and actually not at home. I don't know if he mentioned, but I'm actually at Pebble Beach in the fundraiser for the Legislative Black Caucus. We over the last couple of years since I've been chair, we've been giving out close to $250,000, and our goal this year is to $500,000 in scholarships to African American students throughout California. So I'm honored to be here early in the morning before my other meetings, which fits in beautifully with the work that I've got to do here at Pebble. But just happy to be here. He's told me so much about you, about this organization and this place where he's moved in Florida, that he's at least piqued my interest in terms of figuring out how I can get there once COVID passes, and maybe we get new leadership at the top, that things will be better, and I'll get a chance to once visit my friend and Carolyn. I'm honored to be here. I'm in the state legislature, and I'm one of the senior members now because we do have term limits, and so in the legislature of I think 12 years, and this is my 8th year that I'm in the legislature, the beginning of those who could do 12 years, and so as a result, I'm one of the senior legislators in the process, and I'm actively involved in making change. I serve at a unique position because I'm one of the older members of the legislature, and so I'm not climbing anybody's political ladder. So I can afford to be out there on a whole bunch of issues that are important. And I have strong support from my constituents in San Diego, even though there is no Black community of any size in San Diego. It's 6, 7, 8%, depending on where you are, 9 if you're in the right spot. And so I think the countywide number might be between 9 and 10% at the most in San Diego County. So we don't have a large Black population, and we don't have a significant number of Black elected officials, but we do have, and my district is not Black at all. I think I have a population of about 10 or 11% that's African American. But I've been in the district a long time, and I've served at the university that is in that district. And so my name ID is pretty strong with regards to being elected to the legislature. And I was drafted to be in the legislature, not a desire of mine at all. I was preparing to retire and build my place in Ghana, and found myself in Sacramento instead, buying another house. So that's quite a change and a shift in my reality. But as a result of that, my position was, if I'm going to be there, I have to make a difference. If I'm going to spend my time that I could be moving and playing with my grandkids and enjoying Africa more than once a year, I was going to make it count. And so as a result, over the last 6 or 7 years, I've been fortunate to do really groundbreaking legislation, some that you probably heard about, and may have seen my name and tried to figure out who was this woman out of California. It wasn't Maxine, it wasn't Barbara Lee or any of those names that are often known in Congress, but the state legislature. So I represent the 79th Assembly District, which is about 500,000 people in San Diego and the surrounding areas. San Diego's a large city, so I share it with 2 other legislators, but I represent the central heart of San Diego, as well as a number of surrounding cities that are, none of them that are African American, but nonetheless have Black populations that are active and aggressive that are there. And over the years, I've been doing legislation that deals a lot with schools and accountability, resources, making sure money goes to different aspects, different places in terms of African American kids. Secured about $300 million recently to help Black kids in the state of California who were at the very, very bottom, and trying to figure out how we could be more aggressive and more assertive with what we want to do. And at the same time, limited by the fact that we passed a bill, the state did 24 years ago, Proposition 209, and some of you may have heard about it, that basically makes any consideration of race and gender illegal in the state of California. So we do not have affirmative action and haven't had it in 24 years. So it makes it real difficult for our universities, our K-12s and other entities to really hone down and drill down and do some work that may be beneficial to people of color. And so it's been quite a challenge in the state to try to accomplish that, as well as in the area of contracting and employment. But since then, we still have dealt with issues of social justice. People think California is this very liberal, progressive state, and it is about a few things, maybe the environment, but it is not necessarily that progressive about other folks. In fact, one of my girlfriend's famous poem is called "Save the Whale, Hell, Save the Black Male," you know, and that's her poem about who we need to be focusing on in California. But nonetheless, you know, I've taken on some issues and taken on probably the largest lobbying groups in California, which is the police and the teachers. You know, and they have a tendency to vilify me when they can, but they discovered that that's probably a very ineffective strategy, because the more they vilify me, the more my community sings my songs, and more the other young people up and down the state. So as a result, some of you may have heard, we've done things like AB 953, which is the first mandated racial profiling bill in the nation. Obama recommended that police officers do data collection on racial profiling, and he tried to get it as a mandate, but they never could get it as a mandate. They only had it as a recommendation that this is some of the things that might help police department. Well, California now ended up getting it as a mandate, you know, fighting against the police. The governor at the time as well did not want a Jerry Brown because he felt it would be divisive, whatever that is. And yet, despite that, the community rallied hard and long. And we basically passed AB 953, which is the first racial profiling bill that established also a commission that issues data regularly about racial profiling and the issues that are there, and demand certain changes in that. Also, the issue that everybody's fighting now in terms of lethal force, the use of lethal force, and my bill 392 redefined when you can use lethal force. It says you can only use, across the nation, the thing is that you can use lethal force when you consider it reasonable. We changed it to when it's absolutely necessary, because your your life is in danger as an officer, or someone else's life is in danger. Otherwise, you must de-escalate the situation and use alternative means. And that's AB 392. And it's also AB 392 reversed one of the oldest laws in California, 140 some odd years, which gave people permission to shoot individuals in the back if they fled from an officer, even if it was something as small as stealing a piece of bread. It was a law that came out of slavery, and that emboldened police officers that were there to be able to shoot anyone who was running away from them. AB 392 also makes that illegal, that the person has to have committed a felony that threatens someone's life, or they have the ability or the opportunity to threaten someone else. At that point, you may be able to shoot them. As a result, we have 2 or 3 cases now in California concerning the use of lethal force with regards to so-called fleeing felons. A felony has to be a felony that threatens someone's life. And more recently, we did 370, which deal with jury selection, the fact that there are very few people of color on juries. So now preemptory challenges can be also challenged and made to be and sent through a separate process, so that you just can't throw Black people off the jury as they have been doing for a number of years. And so we have very few juries that have African Americans on it, despite the fact that we occupy 40% of the prisons in California. So we've been doing some work here to try to change California and to make it different. The most recent pieces of legislation that has gotten everyone's attention, one is AB, as I pointed, AB 1460, which mandates that every student in the California State University system, which is the largest educational system, public educational system in the world. There are 500,000 students in Cal State University. Every student has to take a course in ethnic studies. And that ethnic studies is defined as Africana studies, Chicano studies, Native American studies, and API, Asian American studies, which does not include the Holocaust. It doesn't include the Armenian genocide and all the other things. It does not include women's studies in it. And so as a result, it basically puts half a million students over a 4-year period into the ethnic studies department, which is a boom actually for ethnic studies. And it is not a suggestion, it is a mandate. And our system right now is changing for the purpose of doing that. Now, the interesting thing with 1460 was that 1460 came out of most people thought, well, it's the result of George Floyd. No, this bill was proposed a couple of years ago, and it has been in a process for the last 2 years. This came out of many of the communities, or not communities, but many of the institutions, Cal State Long Beach and some others, that were constantly protesting and always in the position where the deans were attempting to eliminate the program or reduce it. In fact, at Cal State Long Beach, where Dr. Karanga was, the recommendation was actually to take this department and turn it into a program, which most of us know once you get a program, you really don't have the kind of stability you want, the engagement with the faculty, with the campus, and tenure track faculty that are actually owned by your department. So this came to us when I first got on the legislature some 8 years ago, and we began to, I took it to the Black Caucus, and we began to work on the issue, doing resolutions, hearings at the Capitol concerning the importance of ethnic studies to the legislature and to the state of California. We built our argument on the fact that California was the home of the first ethnic studies department. The protests in San Francisco State in 1967 basically began ethnic studies as a movement and as a part of the university. And eventually in 1969, the first course is offered. So we argued that California should celebrate its ethnic studies and not denigrate it, that it's a part of our diverse history, being one of the most diverse states in the nation. So we fought for that. We fought for at least a resolution and a recognition of the importance of ethnic studies. Well, we then end up with a new chancellor who came in, and his task, and as a result of that, when the Black wanted to become friends and colleagues, obviously, with the Black Caucus. And I may have been vice chair at the caucus at the time. When we brought him in, our number one question, what are you gonna do about ethnic studies? You know, this is an issue, people are protesting. So he formed a task force, and his own task force came back with after a year and a half or so and said, well, number one, we think you should do is that you should make every ethnic studies a requirement at the state, at the CSU system, because that's our main teaching institution. And that was accepted by the Board of Trustees, as they accept most reports, and that was it. They did nothing else with it. They sat on it and sat on it. And the Black Studies departments up and down the state constantly met and re-met with the chancellor. And I met with them and I said, you know, you need to do something about this recommendation. Now they could have actually saved themselves and done something minor to make it a recommendation, to make sure ethnic studies was throughout the state, was in certain areas, but they didn't. They ignored us. They pretended like we didn't exist. And so as a result, 3 years ago, I authored a bill and then I pulled the bill back, giving them once again another year to decide that this is something they should do on their own without it, because normally you don't have legislators telling the Board of Trustees and the Chancellor what they have to do in terms of curriculum. That is normally left up to them. Well, they still didn't do anything. And so as a result, a year and a half ago, I introduced the bill, AB 1460, to make ethnic studies a requirement in the state of California for all CSU students. And as a result, it went through the normal process. The Chancellor's office attempted to kill it in certain committees, and he had basically almost killed it a year ago in one of our appropriations committee. But you know, you always have a ace in the hole if you're smart here in the legislature. And I knew that my appropriations chair needed me more than I needed him, because he had a highly controversial bill that was coming forward. And I had access to 10 votes in the assembly in terms of the Black caucus, who didn't particularly care for the person in the first place. And so as a result, we're voting for his bill because out of courtesy, I had believed in the bill and had fought for it 2 or 3 years in a row and actually kept it alive. So, I had to remind him that he basically sometimes needs the Black caucus to help his agenda that he had. And so as a result, we have very good friends in the Senate in terms of the President Pro Tem, who's the person who talked me into running for the Assembly in the first place, and her and some others who believed in ethnic studies. And so we were able to, it got stalled, but we were able to revitalize it at the beginning of this year to bring it. It was still in existence. It was being held in a committee. We were able to get it out of committee and get it before the Senate. It had already passed the Assembly. And people were shocked as it passed the Assembly on a bipartisan vote. And that was mainly because I had spent the first 5 or 6 years always reminding the legislature of the importance of ethnic studies, particularly during our Black History Month, and what the world would look like if we knew something about Black history. And so they were pretty much amenable to it. I would give them books on Black history. I would talk about it. I would make sure they understood. So we had basically softened the ground for people to realize the importance of ethnic studies. Plus, we often have, because of the size of our caucus and the size of the Chicano caucus and the API caucus, we had members who had been obviously the beneficiaries of ethnic studies. They had been students who had been motivated by Black and Brown and Asian faculty and basically owed their professional life to ethnic studies. So with that in mind, I continued to basically make sure people understood the importance of it. So when it got to our house in the Assembly, passed with little or no problem, same thing out of the various committees. And when it only got stalled in the Senate, only because there were some folks who were Armenian and someone who was Jewish wanted us to include the Holocaust and all these other kinds of things into it and wanted us to expand it. And I had to remind them that for 50 years, these folks have never wanted to be ethnic and are not. And as a result, that when we look at the investment of Black people and Brown for the last 50 years in a discipline, that they did not qualify. And so we pushed forward with it. And sure enough, I eventually got the bill out and got it on the governor's desk. Well, of course, COVID came in and stalled everything for a minute. But even in the midst of all of that, our chancellor never put forth a proposal. He finally did in the end, put forth a proposal that would give ethnic studies as an option along with so-called social justice. And the definition of social justice was very broad, like most diversity requirements, and anything and everything could fit into social justice. And so he argued his right as a chancellor to do this. And so our future was hanging on whether or not the governor would basically break a tradition and basically sign this bill into law. And for once, the legislature would tell the CSU system exactly what they were going to do. And most people had betted on the fact that that would not happen. So I went forward with the recommendation, and sure enough, the governor, after he met with the chancellor did one Hail Mary conversation with the governor, and shocked the world, shocked everybody, and signed the bill. And basically, ethnic studies became required in the state of California for every student in the CSU system, and it goes into effect coming this September. So they're now scrambling, rewriting it. They're actually proposing a whole section in ethnic study in the general education requirements. There are 5 things that are required, and the 6th one will be ethnic studies. And so it will demand that happens. Faculty, the departments are looking at hiring somewhere between some of them 8 and 9 and 10 faculty members to be able to handle the load of ethnic studies in terms of teaching classes. I'm trying to remind my folks to not fight among themselves about some highfalutin philosophical concept, as faculty love to do, and just take their victory and go on and do the victory dance at the end zone and going on home. And so it's been a challenge because I refuse to, get caught up in this craziness that some of them want to do at the last minute. I said, you have a victory that everybody in the nation wants. Take it and go home. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. So we've been able to pass that. And then immediately following that, able to pass AB 3121, which is the reparations bill. We were able to pass the bill out of both houses without a lot of brouhaha. The Republicans, of course, didn't vote for it, although a couple of Republican friends of mine did vote for it, who were in some very remote areas, and they know that there's some Black history and there is some lands that were stolen from individuals, and some of them already sent me deeds and things, stuff that was taken away. And so we formed the first reparation bill in the nation. California is the largest economy, is the 5th largest economy in the world. And it has the capacity to basically deal with this issue of reparations. So we're in the process of forming the reparations committee. And they will have initially a year and a half to 2 years, really, I guess, to basically bring back recommendations to the legislature as what we need to do to repair the damage that has been done to African-American communities. We're not doing a tell us if there's been damage kind of thing. We're talking about what is the amount of damage that's been done. And so we're at a point where it's not that are we going to do reparations? It's a question of what are the reparations looking like? How extensive should it be? Whether it should be in form of money, whether it should be in form of a large foundation form that some people recommended, whether it should be admissions to the universities, free for African Americans. Exactly what should this look like after years of that. And the recognition that California, despite the fact being a free state, had lots of laws that allowed slavery to exist within its boundaries, had lots of laws that limited African Americans who could not testify in court against a white person, who took land from different individuals, who basically allowed our insurance industry to make lots of money on insuring slaves and ensuring that they would be here. And we participated in the fugitive slave laws. And we actually had a governor who tried to export all Black people out of the state of California, the first governor of California. So we have a history and a legacy of slavery. And so AB 3121 is our reparations bill. And that is now in the process of being reformed in the committee and the commission. The governor signed the bill into law. And so we are the first state to actually have a state that is dealing with the issue of reparations. The other thing that Jim mentioned was proposition, as I mentioned earlier, we're very limited in California because of the lack of affirmative action. And we're constantly battling in the courts about it. So I was able to pass ACA 5, which is because this bill 209 passed 24 years ago and put it in the California Constitution. And so as a result, we have to go back to the voters. And so we were able to pass ACA 5, which basically repeals Proposition 209. It allows the state of California, once again, like 41 other states, to deal with the issue of race and gender in employment, education, and in contracting. And to show you the impact of Prop 209 on California, when affirmative action was in place, African Americans, just in San Diego alone, African American and women did 30 to 40% of all contracts with the city of San Diego. When I was chair of the Equal Opportunity Commission for the mayor in 2010, that number had gone from 30 and 40%, depending on the year, down to 1.5% for African Americans and women and Hispanics. Everybody, all contracting was 1.5%. White men had 98% of all the contracts in San Diego, and still do to this day. Los Angeles, with all of its diversity, has in its city only has 2% contracts for Latinos, 2% contracts for women, and less than 0.5% contract for Black people in the city of Los Angeles. And so 95% of all the contracts in California go to white men. And of course, they're continuing to make the issue of education, that unqualified Black people will get into the University of California, blah, 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 so forth and so on. And so this initiative that we passed, ACA 5, requires a 2/3 vote to get out of the Assembly and the Senate, which is oftentimes a high bar. Now, keep in mind, we have a Democratic legislature. And I say that to the extent that out of the 80 members, 61 are Democrats in California. That means probably very little because most of the bills I deal with, I sometimes struggle to get 41 votes because of the fact of the nature of the bills. And we have a variety of Democrats in the legislature. And as a result, some of them are lean toward more moderate things than others. And so to say that it's easy to get votes out of California, it depends on the vote, and normally it's not that easy. So as a result, we needed 2/3 in the Assembly, we needed 2/3 in the Senate in order to get this to the ballot. Well, fortunately, during the time frame that this was coming forward, ACA 5, we were in the midst of the pandemic, which limited our ability to lobby each other. But unfortunately, George Floyd died at that time, and some people had some guilt on them. And as a result, we not only were able to get 2/3 vote, we got actually 75% in the Assembly and 75 in the Senate to pass ACA 5. And so it is now Proposition 16 on the ballot. And we are fighting, like crazy to get it passed because of the challenges of folks not wanting to, quote unquote, in their minds, give us anything that we don't deserve or even consideration, despite all the support that this bill has. We're fighting. The governor supports it. All of our major mayors of cities support it. Our county boards of supervisors, as well as our statewide supervisors, all of our statewide elected officials have endorsed this bill. So has all of our Chamber of Commerce's, as well as our University of California, that actually was the first one to start the ban on affirmative action 24 years ago. But the University of California Board of Regents, the CSU Board of Trustees, and all of our community college chairs and what have you have endorsed the bill. But we're still fighting. We haven't gotten over 51%. And so there are major things that are happening this week and next week with LeBron James and the Lakers and everybody else. And we'll see what happens with all of that. All of our teams in San Francisco, the owners have all endorsed the bill, as well as all the players. But we still are fighting, because when you start talking about not so much education, some of this is education, but when you start talking about changing the narrative about money, our folks won't come out and say it. They'll even say they believe in the bill, but they know back in the heart of their hearts, they are really holding on to the fact that they, in this state, get 95 to 98% of all contracts. And many of our corporations and organizations are hoping that they can, this bill will pass to give them a little bit of opportunity to do some equity. But that in itself is a challenge. So I'm going to stop there. It's an ongoing battle. I've been on calls all last night. I'm here at Pebble and this morning concerning ACA 5 and Proposition 12. I'll be on a number of calls this evening and interviews and a number of town hall meetings concerning the passage of it. We've been mobilizing all of our Black organizations as well as others to basically deal with this and to get this bill passed. We've raised about $16 or $17 million to get the bill done. But that in California is a drop in the bucket, because we know California is a huge state and it takes a lot to overturn any law. It takes a lot to change things, especially in the proposition world. And so we're aware of that. And so we're still, I think we raised another $1 or $1.5 million last night. And so we're still working to get this bill done, in essence, to create equal opportunity and access in the state of California. So that's it. I'm happy to be here with you today with my good friend, Jim Stewart. And who would have thought some years ago that I'd be in the state legislature battling these issues on behalf of Californians. But it's like I said, I reluctantly came to the Assembly. I did not want to come. Life was supposed to be good for me at this point, with stress, a lot less stress. And yet, you never know where you're going to go, and you never know where it's going to take you. And I guess all of my years of fighting at the university and fighting nationally to get Black studies and ethnic studies acknowledged as a valuable institution, I learned how to fight and get it coming out of UCLA. And so I guess this just prepared me for the main round, the main bout, in terms of making sure, or trying to change many of the laws in California and make it a place that everybody thinks it is, which is one that has a little bit more fairness and equal opportunity and access for so many. So I want to thank you for having me. I'm more than happy. I know there's some questions in the chat. Like I said, this is my end of my 8th year. Potentially, if I decide to stay, I could have 4 more years in the legislature. We've done probably, I don't know how many, over the 8 years, I've probably done about 100 and some odd bills that have been signed into law in California. Probably more than that, because we probably do about 20 a year, 15 to 20 a year over the last 8 years. So it's been my pleasure to represent my community. They've never had an African-American serve in the State House before. So they're excited about it. And we're doing our best to try to mobilize and utilize the force of the neighborhoods and the communities to make change. So I know Jim has some questions, if someone has a question for me.
I put one question in the chat. My question was, have Black caucuses in any other state contacted you to try to find ways that they can adapt your strategies?
You know, they have contacted me as a result of the bills being passed recently. It's been really interesting because each time when we've had major groundbreaking legislation, whether it's 953, the racial profiling, or last year with the use of lethal force, got very little support from any of the Black caucuses, whether it's the California, whether it was the Congressional Black Caucus or anybody else, until the bill actually passed. And then, of course, several people are trying to do similar things. A few have contacted me. I've had some conversation, but not really. It's interesting. I'm scheduled to be a part of the National Black Elected Officials Conference in December and present the bill. And I presented the lethal force bill and help people to understand it. But I'm not sure if they're in for the battle and the long haul that's there. Because I tell people these are not, it's nice to look at them, but they're not easy bills to pass. I mean, you have to have, you have to have the fortitude to basically throw it all in the wind and go after it, because, anytime you do these things, somebody's coming after you, which is understandable. And so, especially when you start talking about dealing with police officers and the police unions and those kinds of things, I mean, they pour millions of dollars into opposition. And in fact, when I was doing one of the bills, that they were very clear to the speaker and everyone else, and he told me kind of out of fear, they're trying to find somebody to run against you. And I said, well, good luck. I mean, I got other things to do besides serving the legislature. So if all this goes somewhere else, I still have I still need to go do my retirement, basically. But so they do that, and I think they search around and try to find somebody to do that. They often told the speaker I was Darth Vader, and that kind of stuff. Dr. Werber's Darth Vader, and he told me that one time with the governor told me that, and I said, well, you must be too, because you signed the bill. I mean, I can't get a bill without the governor's signature unless I do a veto and veto override. And so, but I think they've kind of figured that I'm a little different than the rest of them. I'm known in the state as the moral conscience of the legislature. And I value that comment because they know that I will fight for what is right. Many of them will wibble, wobble, wobble, wibble. And I often drag the legislature with me into the future and mostly into the present, some of them. But they know that I'm known on the legislature as an honorable individual. And I said, because I've lived long enough with people who are crazy, that I know that you have to stand for something, else you're gonna fall for everything. And so as a result, I get support from people. I get support from my colleagues because they know I'm not gonna lie to them. I'm gonna tell them what's really happening. And I'm going to, and the people who support me put a lot of money. I tell people, when you fight these battles, the opposition puts a lot of money against you while you're trying to get the bill out. And so your supporters have to do likewise. On a bill, usually it's the ACLU, the Equal Justice Society. I can give you a list of maybe 250, 300 organizations on my list of support for the bill. And they will sometimes put in as much as $2 or $3 million in advertisement up and down the state concerning the bill. If they monitor everything to make sure if there's any negative publicity coming out against me, that they counter it. When we passed 392, and I try to tell these strategies to folks who want to do it. When I passed 392, the lethal force bill, immediately in every paper up and down the state, there was a full page picture and ad of me as being, the legislator to thank you, Dr. Weber, for doing this or doing that, and those kinds of things. And so they greatly impact the legislature. The Union Tribune, our new local newspaper, last year as a result of this Bill 392, designated me as the 2019 Citizen of the Year of San Diego, which is weird because San Diego is a very conservative place, and they kind of changed the legislature a bit, but I mean their newspaper a little bit. They got new ownership, but you have to have an army. I tell people when they're going to do this, I said you have to be an honorable person, because if not, they're going to come after you for all these little bitty things that don't matter. And then number two, you have to have an army. You got to have people who support you. You cannot forget the community that you came from. If you do, and then when you're in trouble, the community's going to turn their back on you. And so when I do these bills, my community, and that is not just the Black community, that is the social justice community, that is the women's organizations, those kinds of folks, they're in 100%. The LGBT community, maybe there's something of the year this year, up and down the state, Equality California. Why? Because I not only fight for all these things, but I fight for also for their rights, for the social justice issues that are faced by LGBT people in California. So you have to have, you got to have the army. If you don't have the army, you're going to get crushed, because the forces that I fight, whether it's the teachers union or whether it's the police officers union or whatever it is, they're coming after you if they can. And once they decide that they can't, then they move on to somebody else. They will go to somebody next to you who is a co-author on the bill or something of that nature. So I tell folks, you got to be prepared for war, because people don't give this stuff up easily, because attached to it is not just the philosophy of how they want to operate, but it's also their jobs, their value system in terms of anti-Black or whatever it may be. Those kinds of things are there and present in the legislation they write and the activities that they engage in. And so you have to be prepared for war. And I guess, like I said, and I tell them, I'm 72 years old, and what else is happening? I mean, I can handle this stuff. I've already had 40 years as a university professor and a this and a that, and I've traveled around the world. So if I'm going to be here, it has to count. That's my attitude. It has to count. It has to mean something, and therefore I fight the battles that other people are afraid to fight.
I think I know the answer to this next question from Bill Woodson. He said, would you say your role in the State House is a 40-hour-a-week job or 80 hours a week?
It's more than 80. I'll be honest about it. I'm here at Pebble and I'm still getting calls. But the good thing is, and I can't complain too much, because what happens is once you decide that you're going to do some significant things and you're going to fight hard, and I never fight for publicity, but we get lots of it from, Washington, the Washington Post, this paper, the New York Times, all these folks are constantly calling us, and all for interviews. But once you take these battles, you have no problem in getting staff. Young people want to fight the battles, and my staff is generally under the age of 35. That works for me. I have my chief of staff is a little older, and my ledge director is older, but he's an LGBT member, and he fights, for LGBT rights a lot. And so what happens is that these young people are eager to do the legislation that I do, because oftentimes this is their career. And almost every person who has worked with me at some point after a couple of years get snatched up by some social justice organization making 3 times more than they're gonna make with me. And yet and once that happens, then that just means that I have someone in that other organization, and when I do my bills, they are on it, they're supporting it, and they're raising money for it. So I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a really positive in terms of what's there. So I have no problems getting people to come and work for me. So even though I am 24/7, my staff understands that this is their future, especially these young folks, that this is their future. This is what they want to do. They don't want to be elected official, but they do want to make a difference. And so I have no problems getting folks not only to come work for me. I have folks who volunteer in my office, young people who you think actually work for me. Once they graduated from college, they do everything. And in addition to that, when we do fellows, the California State Fellowship Program, they do about 15 fellows every year. I get a fellow every year. And in fact, if there are 15 fellows, they identify who they want to be interviewed with. And some faculty, some members are happy when they get 1 fellow, 2 fellows. If there are 15 fellows, I have 15 fellows to interview. My staff has to interview all 15, because they all have signed up, because they read about our legislation. They've been in the room when I've been testifying on things and on the floor, and they want to come work in our office because they know things happen in that office. So, you know, so even though, like I said, I work 80 hours, my staff is on the phone, my staff, some of them are here with me at Pebble, they work just as hard because they see it as a part of themselves and they believe in what we do. And so I have some of the hardest working folks. I have one of the largest staff, which is interesting, in the legislature, despite the fact that, you know, I once chaired the full budget. I was the first Black person to ever chair the whole budget of the legislature. And now I do a portion of it because that's easy to deal with in terms of dealing with social justice issues. But I have no problems getting staff. And so I have staff that works all the time. That if I make a call here, if I make a call on Sunday morning, a text to someone, I'm going to get a response in probably 15 minutes. So I have a hardworking staff that believe in what we do, and a lot of young people who in my office and want to work in my office and hang around there. I've had staff, 3 or 4 of them, who volunteered for 2 years working a part-time job in a library, so that waiting for me to get a position for them to take. And when it did, I hired them. So it's been good for them to actually be in a position where they think that year the legislation is going to have meaning and it's going to have some significance, and it's going to basically be exciting for them to work with the governor and all the other folks that we work with.
Dr. Weber, this is Linda Crump, and we have some really great questions in the chat, and I'd love to get to some of them. One is very relevant to what's happening here in Florida right now. We have a ballot on the Constitution, an amendment to open primaries for our state legislature, governor, and cabinet, and they're saying that, look at what California is doing as an example. Would you comment on this, please?
Disaster, disaster, disaster. Most people think the open primary means you could just, you know, kind of do what you want to do, and it really doesn't. What it does, it waters down the ability of certain groups, particularly if you're in a state like California, where you have a strong Democratic presence. You allow 2 Democrats to run against each other. If the primary doesn't weed out the folks and you basically get the Democrat you want, then you get 2 Democrats running against each other. Well, one is going to tap dance to the Republicans. One is going to basically go to the other party for support. And so in that case, you end up having Democrats trying to figure out how to be in the middle of the road, how to do these kinds of things. Why? For protection of themselves. And so what we could see is that it hasn't changed. People say, well, it'll change who gets elected. It hasn't changed the balance of power in terms of the fact that there's still more Democrats than Republicans in the state, and it keeps growing up, probably because of the White House. But what it has done, it has changed the nature of the people in the House, so that they feel that they're in these districts that they're called, they're not blue district and they're not red district, but they can potentially be purple. And you end up giving more power to those who are in the minority, or those who are who are nonpartisan, those kinds of things. And so it is, to me, it's a disaster. And most of us realize it. You also, the only people, there was an article done on it, the only people who benefited from this new so-called open system have been the people, the campaign managers, because they're making buku money. If you have 2 Democrats running in a Democratic district, you have a huge election. Where if you had a primary that basically weeded out, and you pick the Democrat that people want and you pick the Republican they want, and if it's a Democratic district, you don't have a major campaign occurring as you do now among Democrat and Democrat. And so there's a lot of money poured into these things, but more importantly, it has a tendency to weaken the party, weaken the kind of stances that people take. And like I said, there's 61 Democrats. And I have difficulty sometimes getting 41, mainly because we've got 10, 15 people who are afraid of themselves, who every time there's anything happen, they have to apologize to all the Republicans in their district. They have to do all these kinds of things. And they're less effective in terms of basically dealing with the issues. And their lives are miserable in their mind, because they're constantly trying to have to sacrifice what they believe in. So the open primary is not what it appears to be. It empowers those who are of a lesser party or issue that's there, and we wish, and we might eventually be able to change it. But it is, the only people who benefited from it have been the fundraisers and the campaign people who make lots of money on ads and commercials and those kinds of things. So if you can avoid it with all of your power. And I'm sure anyone in California will tell you that, except for those who are otherwise. And it also takes away the power of these what are those things, of the lesser parties, the Green Party, those parties, they now are thrown in the mix, and therefore they don't get a chance to pick a candidate. And so they then end up not being able to run a candidate in the end. And what you'll find is that what they will do is that I remember one year when I was running unopposed, after the election occurred, right before the end, after everything had been identified, then someone from the Green Party or whatever party it was filed to run and to become a write-in, because then they could get 1 or 2 votes and be on the ballot. But otherwise, they can't qualify for the ballot. So we don't have all these parties in our on our ballot, with the Green Party and this party and the Peace and Freedom. They're not on our ballot because they're not. They can't compete with the Democrat and Republicans running in an open primary where everybody votes. It's going to come out to be either 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans or Democrat Republican, but those other lesser parties cannot get on the ballot. And to me, that's even worse than some of the other stuff, because you take away the voice of the other parties.
Again, this is Linda Crump. I want to thank you for that answer, because it has been a challenge for us here in Florida. There are a lot of questions out there, and I know we can't get to all of them or else we're going to take your whole day. But there was one that said, do you think the ethnic studies requirement will trickle down to the high schools?
You know what? It should. And in fact, the reason why I put the bill out the first year and I pulled it back was out of deference to my colleague who was chair of higher ed. He put together the K-12 bill for ethnic studies. And that bill actually was introduced before the university bill. And what happened was, in the midst of it, there was some stuff happening at the state level. And so the bill had sailed through both houses almost on finishing at the Senate, and for ethnic studies in a K-12. And they were in the process at the state level of writing curriculum that had been recommended years before, not for a mandated requirement, but that we write a curriculum, a standard curriculum for ethnic studies for all of our K-12 schools. And so the state Department of Education was in the process of doing that. And then this came up, this bill, and it should have gone forward. And the chair of the bill got nervous and held it, which was, everybody told him, don't do it. The Chicano caucus was supporting this bill. I said, don't hold the bill, move forward, because things are not going to get better. And what happened was, someone in the writing of the curriculum of ethnic studies threw in some stuff about the Palestinians and the Jews. And that started a battle about, is there adequate representation? Because they weren't even supposed to be in the curriculum, but someone threw it in there. And as a result, instead of them being strong and like I was and say, this is about four groups of people, they started saying, well, maybe we can include the Jews. Well, once you open up that can of worms, then you had the Armenians, and then you had some other group and some other group, and then you had these folks, and then you had the Arabs and the whatever. You had a whole bunch of people want to get in. And that thing, and I'm on the statewide committee on curriculum for the State Department of Ed. And that thing has been, I got on it recently, it's been mired in that mess ever since. I'm trying to pull the pieces out and to basically refocus it. But as a result of that, his bill came forward and got vetoed by the governor. His bill was held up, came up, mine came up, and I thought mine was far more controversial, because we were basically reversing or challenging the chancellor and the board of trustees of the CSU system to have the right to do this. And his bill was strictly a legislative bill and had been through both houses, got to the governor's desk, and the governor vetoed it because the Jewish community was coming unglued and about the bill. Now, the Jewish community is still upset over my bill, although but I was at least consistent and persistent that this was about the 4 major groups in ethnic studies that had been developed 50 years ago. And where there might be some intersectionality, that the issue was not about Israel and the Holocaust, because in fact, that's an international issue. It is not about development of stuff in California. But that ethnic studies bill, K-12, got vetoed. And with the statement, and it really emanated from the Jewish community. And because they had, I was scheduled to do a lecture from them, and they pulled their lecture because they said I wrote some curriculum that they didn't like, or whatever it was about BDS, and I didn't even write the curriculum. So I thanked them for giving me back my time to do what I needed to do with other things. And I also then reminded them very clearly that the thing they were talking about, I wasn't even on the committee for, and this, that, and so forth and so on, but it's all good, and I had met with them. But it got killed. And so it's scheduled to come back. But the good thing I pointed out to them is, at least with the K-12 situation, they needed the CSU, because the CSU prepares all the teachers for the K-12. And as a result, they need to have the teachers trained beforehand. And ethnic studies, those departments are going to demand that the teachers not just get up and give feel-good classes and rap half an hour every day, but really understand and know the curriculum. So it's good that they are going to get the initial information, and we're going to work. I'm working with universities Ed department at San Diego State, and we're going to try to get a certification in ethnic studies for teachers who might want to teach it at their university, so that it is so that they have some credentials, that this is not somebody who just happened to look at some Black movie or seen something and now think that they're eligible to teach ethnic studies. We should.
Dr. Weber, we want to really thank you for an amazing presentation. Everything you said resonates with us. And I don't know the equivalent of a standing ovation on Zoom, but assume that you have a standing ovation. I'm going to take one personal privilege and say, when you are done with your term limit there, please run for a congressional seat at the US level or the Senate. We need your voice. Amen. You are fantastic. Jim, turning it back over to you.
I need to be Jim Stewart,
Jim, we can see the questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of information is there. And as these things develop, don't hesitate to call me. If you've got issues that are legislated that you think California has some relationship with, don't hesitate to give me a call. And because California does things first. As we do these reparations hearings, I will try to keep Jim informed, because the beauty now that we all have Zoom is that you can also participate in those hearings and hear what we're discovering, recommendations that are coming forward, because that's who you guys are in terms of the study and life of African Americans. And so I look forward to the robust hearings and input from folks around the nation to get a chance to talk about reparations. And I hope you will join us in those conversations. Once again, thank you so very much, Jim. Thanks to everyone.
Shirley, Carol says she's sending you a virtual hug.
Tell her I'm sending her one back to you guys. And thanks so very much. It's so good to see so many of us in the morning. Take care.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you see why I invited Dr. Weber to be our Moment in History speaker. That she's a real dynamo and she takes no prisoners. So. All right, I promised Bill Woodson that I would allow him to talk to us at the conclusion of Moment in History, because he has another commitment. So Bill.
Thank you, and good morning, Sala. How's everybody doing this morning?
Morning, Bill.
I have some interesting news to share, and I'm going to ask some guests that I've brought to identify themselves in a moment as well. But I have about 20 minutes of content. I'm going to try to squeeze down to about 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm motivated because I'm keeping my my boss, the president of New College, waiting. I have another meeting starting at 11. So without any further ado, I really am looking forward to partnering with Asala around the promotion of our second annual Visions of the Black Experience Film Festival. It's going to be virtual this year. It is going to be free, as it was last year. We're really excited. We have doubled the number of feature films that we're going to be offering. We're going to be offering a number of shorts as well. We have some really great content, a focus on local stories as well as on civil rights issues. One of the premier films that we're really excited to bring to the community is Into the Storm, and we're also excited to be partnering with local high schools to make these films available so that high school teachers can integrate viewing the film, and also we're going to have some great talkbacks after some of the films, including Into the Storm. Some of the participants who are still living here in the community or around the country who are going to be coming in locally, virtually, to talk about their experience with the movie. So that's Visions of the Black Experience. The dates are November 12th to the 22nd. Visions of the Black Experience is available on Facebook, and there's a site there that you can sign up for updates. And again, the focus is on making it free and on making it widely available, especially to high school students. And speaking of high school, we're really doing some cool things as a college. I feel like we have just gotten a great team and some great energy around a couple of new offerings. And I know that many of the people here online are working as volunteers, as mentors in local high schools. So I want to make sure that you're all aware of the fact that we have expanded our guaranteed admission program, which we had partnered with Booker High School as a guaranteed admission partner, where having earned a certain GPA and a certain standardized test score and having completed certain advanced, placement or ACE classes. That profile, which is very transparent, it's documented online. You are guaranteed admission to New College if you apply. And so Booker was our partner last year. We're expanding that partnership to include Southeast High in Bradenton, as well as Sarasota High School. And we're looking to maybe add 2 or 3 more local high schools to that program this year. So again, it's a doubling down our commitment to accessibility and engagement with the local high school students. And then we also recently launched the Barancic Scholarship. Oh, I neglected to mention the Visions of Black Experience. Our lead sponsor is Community Foundation of Sarasota County. And so we're very thankful to the Community Foundation for their lead sponsorship of the Visions of the Black Experience, allowing us to offer that for free. The Barancic Scholarship is a scholarship partnership that's helping us to launch this thing called Access Leadership. And we have 15 scholars in this year's class, our inaugural class. It is a scholarship that is specifically for Sarasota and Manatee County students who have high financial need and have demonstrated leadership, and they're be automatically considered for the Barancic Scholarship upon applying to New College. And so we're really wanting to erase both the information gap, how do I get into New College, how do I qualify, and also the how do I afford a 4-year residential college experience. We're really putting in resources to support those goals. And speaking of our commitment to these dimensions of community outreach, I want to also introduce 3 new members of the team at New College, each of whom is in a different strategic area of the college, but each of whom brings some great experience, perspective, and a commitment to engaging with the community and to supporting our young people, particularly our young people of color. And I see, and I'm going to ask them to at least open their microphone and say hello. If we have the focus point, so you can at least see a face to go with the name. There's a lot of faces here. So if Kimberly Granger can just say hello and good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Morning, Kimberly.
So Kimberly is a new member of our Provost's office, and Kimberly brings a fantastic background. She comes to us from North Carolina Central, and serves as Assistant Vice President for Academic Administration in the Provost office. And one of her key focus areas is implementing processes and procedures for data-informed decision-making within the academic unit. And she's also very interested in looking at international programs and special academic initiatives, such as a summer pre-college program, kind of like a bridge program, and that's currently being planned. And she's also involved with the academic reporting for New College to the Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors. And for those who kind of follow what happens at the SUS level, being able to position our performance against the key metrics that we're held accountable to is very important to our continued success. So that's Kim Granger. I see Stacy Campos on there. Stacy, you can just open your microphone for a moment and say hello, so they can spot you.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you today.
So Stacy is a member of my team. She is a new director of community outreach, and Stacy is going to be providing program direction to our Mellon II grant administration. She's also very focused on outreach to local high schools and local community partners, nonprofits, corporations, just strengthening those relationships and putting some structure around those relationships between New College and the community. She'll be working with Kim Granger on this pre-college program, summer program that we're going to be offering, and talking to Asala and other groups around how do we connect to qualified high school students that could take advantage of that. And then lastly, Damon Wade, I think Damon is on the line. Damon, can you open your microphone and say hello if you're there? Okay, I don't know if Damon was joining us this morning. Damon is our new Vice President of Enrollment Management. And so enrollment management, of course, is very strategic in terms of our admissions goals. The admissions office, as well as the financial aid office and the registrar's office, all report into Damon. And he comes with an HBCU background and a real understanding of how to of the opportunity that students of color that are currently quite underrepresented at New College, and how we need to focus our attentions on how do we engage that community more effectively. And he's very excited to work with this group as well. I would say to this community, sorry for the short and kind of fire hose of information, but capture those names if you have ideas around partnership, or come to me and I'll get you connected. But we are doubling down on our commitment to communities of color, and this is a part of that. And, thanks for the time. Thanks very much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you and welcome to new members of our community, and we look forward to them being actively involved in the South. All right, next on the agenda, the minutes of the September 25th Zoom meeting.
Deborah, you muted. Deborah, you muted.
Are there any corrections, additions to the minutes?
Just one very minor one. The name of the Cultural Resource Center should be corrected so that everybody would know we are the, I'm Lavette Harper, the
Right.
African American Cultural Resource Center, AACRC. Thank you.
African American. Okay, I thought I had that. Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Correction.
All right, I will read the minutes into the official record subject to the correction. Thank you very much. Next is the president's report. Really quickly, following up on Bill Woodson's announcements. Some people have apparently found out that I'm leaving my office and have found ways to utilize my time and plan for me in the future. So I'm serving on the New College Search Committee for the presidency. And I'm also serving on the board of the Arts and Cultural Alliance. So I'll be busy working for Asala through those capacities for a while at least. All right, next is the Nominations Committee report.
Good
Karina,
morning, everyone.
Morning.
Okay, I would like to present the slate of officers for 2021 and 2022. President David Wilkins, First Vice President Gary Giscombe, Second Vice President Dorothy LeBron Green, Recording Secretary Frederick White, Corresponding Secretary Marion Black Ruffin, Treasurer Alan Martin, Financial Secretary Mary Jackie Davis, Members at Large Rita Smith and Robert Cantino. Now we will have nominations from the floor. Are there any nominations for president? Are there any nominations for president? Are there any nominations from the floor for president? Not hearing any, we will move on to first vice president. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor for vice president? Hearing none, we will move to second vice president. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations for second vice president? Are there any nominations for second vice president? Hearing none, we will move on. Recording secretary. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor for recording secretary? Corresponding secretary, Marion Black Ruffin, Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor for corresponding secretary? Hearing none, we will move on. Treasurer. Alan Martin. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, we will move to Financial Secretary. Mary Jackie Davis. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor for Financial Secretary? Hearing none, we will move to members at large, who are Rita Smith and Robert Cantona. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Any nominations for members at large? Hearing none, that concludes my report submitted by Clarine Richardson, Constance Anderson, Irene Hill, and Lois Watson. Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karina. Thank you to the members of your committee for putting together such an impressive slate.
You're quite welcome.
With the second reading, this constitutes the official slate, which members will vote on. The election will be conducted virtually from November 9th to November 13th. We have the procedures in place. Marion, do you want to say something about the process, please?
Yes, we have the slate in a software program that will allow you to vote for each member, either a yes or a no. And it will go out and you will get 2 additional emails reminding you to vote during that period of time. Thank you.
We will announce the results of the election at the November meeting. So thank you again, and for all the hard work, and thank those who are on the slate for being willing to carry on the important work of Manasota Solid. Next is the Treasurer's Report.
Good morning, Asala. I'm here to share some good news about the Treasurer's Report. And I call your attention to 3 items on the report. If we start with the $1,100 number that's labeled dues, it also contains $935 in contributions, the Mighty Cause Charitable Foundation. And that represents the donation of 16 people who gave money to Asala. So that's very good news. Going down to expenses, this also reflects very good news. The first item, $7,500 for tuition, represents the first part in our payment of a total of $30,000 that we allocated for that amount. I'm pleased to report that we also were able to pay $22,000 in addition to that in the month of October. The dues below, again, are just dues that we normally pay. And those are the main things I want to highlight in the report. The good news is the contribution and the fact that we are actively funding our commitment to the student scholarships. And that's my report.
Are there any questions for the Treasurer? Alan, you might mention that we're in the process of changing banks.
We are changing banks. BB&T is in the process of merging, and in the process of merging, they sort of let us fall through the cracks. And I'm going to look at PNC probably about the next month and a half, and we'll get our own dedicated account counselor. And I was not satisfied with BB&T, so we're moving actively to change our accounts.
We'll read the Treasurer's Report into the record subject to modification as needed. Next is Second Vice President Report. Peggy?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to give a brief overview of the membership status. New memberships or renewing memberships that have come in since September. We have received 16 dual membership renewals since September, which represents 32 members. We have received 14 regular or senior membership renewals since September. We have received 1 associate membership since September, and I'm happy to report that we have received another new institutional member, the Moat Marine Laboratory. So we're very happy about that. I believe that brings our institutional membership to about 14, Jim. I'm not looking at the report right now. So I want to thank all of those asylum members who have renewed for 2021. Thank you so much. It's very important that we take care of that business. And I'm still open for business through the end of January. So please route your membership. And if there are any contact updates, please let us know if your address, phone number, or email address has changed, and get that 2021 membership into us as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
And I
That's the report.
have a special announcement to make that I think will be bring joy to many ears and minds. We now have an online membership process that's live. So if you don't want to mail your membership in directly to Peggy, you can now renew your membership, start a new membership online. There is a fee associated with the processing of your credit card or your debit card, but I know that a number of members have asked for this for a long time, and we're glad that we're finally able to respond to your wishes, and we look forward to your taking advantage of that system. Thank you very much. Next is good and welfare. Vote.
Jim,
Yes.
this is Gene Crump. Can you elaborate on the dues and the other things online for the members? Is it just for dues, or is it for the other things that we pay money to ASALH for? And how much is the fee? And is it a 1-month fee, or is it all year fee, or some more particulars?
All right, Marion, you're on.
You're muted, Marion. There you go.
Okay. The fee, I'll address the fee first. The fee is 2.2% and 30 cents per transaction fee. So once a person goes in and signs up for or renews their membership, they get a one-time fee. It's not an annual fee or multi-month fee. And will we use the payment system for other things like Randy Rankin this year? We'll have to see, but if we're collecting money, it will collect as normal, and it will be fine. I think we'll be able to collect if we decide to sell T-shirts or anything else. We'll be able to collect through PayPal as well.
Will the members receive something in the email about this new venture, or do we have to learn by hit and miss?
I think you'll get something in the email. When you sign up with your membership, you get a receipt in the email, and a notification also comes in to let us know the date and the time that you signed up.
I think Gene was asking, am I going to send out an email announcing the capability of, and the answer is yes.
Thank you, Jim, Marion.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
As far as the memberships, I mean, we have two different memberships. You have general membership, right, for members, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's institutional membership. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
What is the difference between the two? I mean, is there something more that as an institutional member that they're receiving for becoming an institutional member? I mean, is there more sort of, voting rights, or is there, something significant, whereas people would decide to be an institutional member rather than just a general member?
Well, we include the information about our institutional members in all of our publications, as example, the directory, or if we're sending out information about special events. And institutional members are asked by National to authorize 3 individuals who will be contacts with the organization to make sure that that they're I guess well informed. One of the things that we had hoped to be able to do, but COVID stopped it, was to actually create sort of an advisory board consisting of representatives of the institutional members to discuss ways in which we can improve collaboration. So that's still something that's on the drawing board that we want to do.
Okay.
Any other questions? I think the membership committee will be looking for individuals to work as we move forward. So anyone who's interested, please contact Peggy. And again, I think with this new system, we'll be able to consider a lot of new possibilities under David's regime. Hint. All right, next on the agenda is good and welfare.
Morning.
Morning, Bo.
I am reporting on Clarence Rogers. Youngest sister passed away in Cleveland, and we sent condolences to Clarence concerning his sister's passing. The other thing that I'd like to report concerns Shirley Miller. Shirley Miller had an operation and she has since been released from the hospital and she's recovering at home. I have spoken to her on several occasions to offer our prayers concerning her recovery. And also Phyllis White had her operation about 3 weeks ago. She has since been released from the hospital and she's home recovering. So in each of these cases, we've offered our prayers and condolences in the case of Clarence's sister. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Bo. If anyone has any information about any of our members who are ill or incapacitated or have lost a loved one, please pass that on to Bo so that we can appropriately contact them and express our concern. Next is Education Committee. David.
Jim, very quickly, as we reported last week, we're continuing to work with the 11th graders, Edna Sherrill's 11th graders at Booker High. We've now done 4 videos. This is her U.S. government class, and so we're trying to provide our perspective to that subject. The most one was on the U.S. constitutional protections for slavery, and so we'll continue working with Edna, and still looking for ways to get back into the elementary school, but COVID has made everything more difficult, including that. And then lastly, I did a talk last week, Tuesday evening, with for the Lakewood Ranch History Club, entitled American Slavery, the Hard History Americans Refuse to Embrace. They recorded that, and it's available. If we wanted to make it available to our members, we could put it on our website. That's my report, Jim.
Please put that on the website.
Okay.
David, I do have a question.
Yes.
Your videos that we've provided to Edna's class have been fabulous. Is there a way that's going to be on our webpage? Because unfortunately, not every school has a David Wilkins who's providing wonderful videos. I know I would love to send them to my grandsons, but I want to make sure others have access to them too. Thanks.
Right, I just got I got a note in chat that says that George Jordan just celebrated his 90th birthday. So happy birthday, George.
This is Ed Swan. Could I ask a question of David?
Yes.
Could you give us a sense of the demographics of the audience for your lecture at Lakewood Ranch, number one? Number two, what kinds of questions did you receive and what kinds of response did you receive?
Great questions. Ed, how are you?
I'm great.
Demographics, you're not surprised to know, was primarily Caucasian. There were several African Americans. I think I noticed a few Latinos, very small number. Probably, I think, Lois, correct me, there were 70 or so participants. So this is this is my first experience with the Lakewood Ranch History Club. Seems like a pretty well-established group.
I think most of those are members because they were on the call as well.
The Catanos, yes.
Yes.
Right. So it was an interesting group. The Q&A was my talk was about 40 minutes. The Q&A ran for another 40 or 50. What I was trying to do in the talk was to frame our teaching hard history curriculum that we'd used at the schools and gave some background into how that was developed by the folks at the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I was linking that to the 1619 project and the controversies around, the work, the criticisms really that Nicole Hannah-Jones and the team have received. And contrasting that with how we've taught American slavery, American history from sort of the lost cause framework, and ended by linking all of that to the Sarasota schools conflict over this training that had been canceled that we talked about. Perhaps the most interesting question I got was from a gentleman who thought that we were, he didn't go so far as to say we were trying to indoctrinate children, as the president has said, but what he said was, aren't we making the study of American slavery more difficult when we link it to the anti-racism training, and aren't we, shouldn't we be separating the sort of white guilt, white fragility from the subject? So that led to a lot of conversation, as you can imagine. So it was I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I think the Q&A was good. I actually have saved the Q&A, so when we put it on the website, you could go in, Ed, and kind of see what the questions were. But that was probably the most controversial. And this gentleman obviously had an issue with what he felt was the guilt being imposed on white people in the current conversation around race. And so we had a response to that, as you can imagine, and it led to some other good discussions. So.
Thank you. Your work is absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that.
Dave, did you receive the information I sent to you?
Phyllis, I did absolutely. I've been looking on this Zoom to see you, and I need to send you a thank you note. Phyllis is a participant in the teaching hard history, teaching tolerance program. She sent me 3 magazines, and one of the 3 had the most recent update of their American slavery. So it was spot on and very timely, and forgive me for being so slow. Lois is going to get me for not being better on my thank you notes, but it was brilliant.
No problem. I just want you to know, when you're finished with Sarasota, please come to Georgia.
Well, let's just make sure you turn your memberships in to us, because you're still dealing with us, so we want to see your membership. All right, moving on. There was no old business on the agenda that I'm aware of. Under new business, I committed to allowing Neil Phillips to talk about the NIM Academy. So is Neil on?
He is.
I am, Jim, yes.
Okay, welcome, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jim. And first, I want to say thank you to all of, to you, Jim, and all of the members of ASALH for making the time to enable me to acquaint you with the work that we're doing with Visible Man Academy. I recognize many of you through the faces I've seen, some of you as donors and supporters and visitors to our campus and our events. Really grateful. I will share with you that my wife and I, probably 4 years ago now, attended the Asala event where Ms. Wilkerson, the author of Warmth of Other Suns, presented. And it was such a special occasion. We certainly have since felt really connected to Asala for enabling that event and allowing us to experience that brilliance. So I want to take what little time I have to just acquaint you with Visible Men. And I'm going to share some of Visible Men's past, very little bit of that, and then a lot more about our present and our future. In 1952, one of the great works in American literature was gifted to all of us, and that was Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. It was then and still is and always will be a masterpiece, but a tragic one. And I know so many of you, or if not all of you, are familiar with that work. 580 pages chronicling a Black man's struggles in New York City as well as in the South. For the entire 580 pages, you never learn his name. And that is the epitome of invisibility. And Visible Men was founded and exists to really champion the opposite of that invisibility, which is see and be seen. And that's what Visible Men is rooted in, is the notion of seeing and being seen. The past, right? So Visible Men, I grew up surrounded by Black male role models. Everywhere I turned, I found Black male role models. I found my father in the home. My father in the home, and beyond my home, I found through his friends, through my teachers, coaches, through the custodian at my school, everywhere I turned, I found Black male role models. And then in my adult years, I continually heard and was increasingly bothered by what I was hearing expressed in a lot of different ways, which was there are no Black male role models, or there aren't enough Black male role models. And that declaration ran entirely counter to my experience. And not only did it run counter to my experience, which made me declare that it just wasn't true, I also started to recognize how damaging that message was for our young boys. Because our young boys needed to know that there were role models in their communities, Black and otherwise, that they could find as long as they had their eyes open, as long as they were seeing. So it caused me and my wife to start putting together programming around doing what we called telling the untold story of Black male success. And we were contacted by some principals in the area. We were in Washington, D.C. at the time, from school principals in the area who desperately needed programming for their boys. We developed an after-school program that we shared with 3 schools. And in 2 years of just an hour a week, we were seeing incredible results in terms of increase in attendance, reduction in behavioral transgressions, increase in class participation, elevation in grades. We were measuring these things. And it was unbelievable. And we thought to ourselves, wow, if we could create a more immersive experience around this philosophy, around this content, we could really have some impact. We then relocated to Florida. We're in our 10th year of being here. And in our first year, we met and teamed up with who would become our co-founders for Visible Men Academy, Lewis Parker and Cindy Cavallero Day. The 4 of us created VMA. Visible Men Academy is now in its 8th year here, located in Bradenton, Florida. We are a kindergarten through 5th grade school. And last school year, we were able to add a VPK component, which is wonderful. So we're actually aging down through a partnership with Step Up Suncoast. And we exist to tell a very different story about the school and life prospects for the boys we serve. And we serve exclusively boys from lower income families. We are as Title I a school as you'll find in the country. We are 99 point something percent serving families who live at or below the poverty line. We are located in the Pride Park community in Bradenton. So really between 41 and 301 on 63rd Avenue. So kind of, just east of Bayshore Gardens and west of that wonderful smell of baked bread and goods that you get when you head on 301. We're right in that area. And we have 100 boys, and we have learned so much over the course of our existence in terms of what these boys need in order to be successful in school and in life. We have an absolutely amazing team of teachers and staff, an incredibly capable and dedicated principal, and a really wonderful and supportive donor and partner base who rally around our mission to elevate these boys to new heights of achievement and accomplishment. And the thing that we know most, we went into this undertaking with this belief, and it is continually being affirmed, that our biggest crisis as it relates to boys from low-income communities, primarily Black boys, our biggest crisis is a crisis of low expectations. We have done, our nation has done what dysfunctional teams, dysfunctional families, dysfunctional organizations fall into this trap, which is that they allow low performance to lower expectations rather than doing just the opposite, which is what great organizations do, which is they raise expectations to get higher performance. Expectations drive behavior. We know this. We know this from all kinds of different research. We know this from just seeing how high functioning organizations work and how accomplished individuals succeed. It's that they're working with high expectations. So that's the first thing we do at VMA, is we have an environment that sets high expectations for these boys' achievement, for their contact, for their character and social development, for everything. And what we know is that this environment of high expectations causes them to feel valued, causes them to feel loved. It helps them understand that they're in an environment of adults who know they are capable of achieving. And what that does is it changes their mindset. It is an incredible thing to see how young an age our boys come in afflicted with a sense of their marginalization in our community. They know it. They know it early on that people don't expect much of them. And it is a sad thing to see. And we have to combat that right away. And we literally do it from the moment they step out of their cars at drop off in the morning. We greet them with eye contact, firm handshakes, hugs. Sorry, I shouldn't say that in a pandemic environment, but it's the truth. And we let them know that they are going to be experiencing a sense of value for every single minute that they're on our campus. We are an environment of high academic expectations. When we first started, our second year of existence was our first testing year with our third grade. And we received an F for our Florida State assessment performance. And obviously that was disappointing for us. Truthfully, it wasn't surprising to us. We knew what low academic starting point we were encountering. We also knew that if we stuck with our belief and our faith in these boys, if we stuck with our prioritization of character and social development, and if we gave our boys the time to grow and to let these things manifest, that things would change for them academically. And it certainly did. We went from that F grade to a C grade the following year to an A grade the year after that. And it was simply a function of belief, of allowing these boys to grow into who we knew them to be, and affording them the time to demonstrate their capabilities. So we're very, very proud of that ascension. We're very, very proud of the work that our staff does with our boys to sustain that high achievement. We have too many boys who are still far below grade level. And so we recognize that this is not just a one-time or an occasional bump in performance. This has to be a really sustained effort to keep them performing at the highest academic level that they can. And we know that their academic performance is not the only thing that is going to dictate their prospects for success in life. We're absolutely convinced of that. If I were to pose to any of you, name the 3 things that have contributed to the success in your life, not one of those 3 things would be that you could recite facts about the War of 1812 or, the Pythagorean theorem. Those things are important, but you would all talk about strong character, resilience, persistence, being able to be part of a team, understanding how to establish and sustain healthy relationships. These are the things that we all know contribute to lifelong success and impact, yet we do far little deliberate teaching of those things in our school environments. That's just something we at VMA cannot reconcile and won't reconcile. So we teach the things we know to be critical to lifelong success, academics being one of those things. There's so much I could say more about our current, but I know I have limited time, so I'm going to move on into our future. We are really, really fortunate and excited about launching into a capital campaign that is going to raise the funds to enable us to build a permanent schoolhouse, a permanent home. Right now, we occupy a church facility. Well, it's actually now a synagogue. It changed hands in a transaction a little over a year ago. And it's wonderful for our needs right now, but it is not enough for our growth plans. And our growth plans are absolutely necessary so that we can serve more boys and impact more boys and more families. So we need to grow. 4 years ago, we purchased the vacant lot next door, right adjacent to our campus, 4.2 acres. We purchased that lot and we own that lot, and that's going to be the site of our forever home. And we couldn't be more excited about launching this campaign as a celebration of our staff, our students, our community and families, and our supporters, and recognizing that we're only at the beginning of the kind of impact that we have to have. When we started our school, we started it with 2 convictions. And the first was we want to be a great local school. And that's pretty self-explanatory. We want to serve our students and families as best we can. And that conviction still exists, local school. The second commitment that we made at that time was national impact. And national impact refers to our obligation to recognize that sadly this crisis that afflicts our immediate community exists far beyond our immediate community, far beyond Bradenton, Sarasota, far beyond our region, far beyond our state. And so we feel obligated to share and broadcast and amplify the learnings and discoveries we're experiencing for the benefit of boys, students, families, communities, schools we'll never engage with across the country. We know that we're learning things that will be of value far beyond our school. We also know that there are people doing great work in these areas, in our area, and far beyond. And we want to be an agent to centralize that work so that we can all benefit from the good work that's being done across our country. So our new school will not just be a school that will help us double our enrollment. It will also be a professional development center that invites philanthropists, educators, local politicians from across the country to come and really immerse themselves in the study of what's working well for our boys across America. So that is our commitment, local school, national impact. We're thrilled about our capital campaign and our new building, and excited to share all of that excitement with the community. And the final thing I'll touch on about our future, I'm looking at the screen here and I'm seeing so many visible men on the screen. And I'm also seeing so many visible women who support and elevate these men. And for me, I'm really excited to share an additional initiative on our part, which is the Visible Men Network, right? So from day one, as we conceptualized Visible Men, we wanted to tell this untold story, and we wanted to celebrate the good news about the Black male experience in America, because there's a lot of it. There are a lot of success stories, even amidst the challenges. Visible Men Network is a separate agency that exists to collect these stories, to organize them, to share them, and to shape these stories into curriculum, just like math and science and reading curriculum, comprehensive, that we're going to share with boys, certainly in our school, but with boys in community agencies, after-school programs, faith-based agencies all across the country. And we're just at the beginning stages of developing that platform that is related to our Visible Men Academy mission. And I'm also excited to share with you, Peggy, that because of the news you shared earlier, you will now have a 15th institutional partner. Visible Men Network will jump on online and test out this new platform right away. And I'm excited to join Asala in that way and connect Visible Men Academy to the great work that Asala is doing. I could go on forever. I'll close by saying, we have a conviction about our boys, and our conviction is that our boys will be successful because of who they are, not in spite of who they are. When we look around and we see the traits of great leaders in our country, whether they be corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, medical pioneers, you name it, we see resilience and creativity and toughness and persistence and all of these traits. Our boys bring those traits with them to school every single day because of the difficulties of the environments they exist, every single day. And when you start to look at those traits as assets rather than as deficits, it opens up your mind to realizing what and who these boys can become. That's our conviction. I appreciate you allowing me to share and acquaint you with Visible Men Academy. I have so much respect for your organization, Jim. I'm grateful to you and look forward to engaging Asala in as many different ways as we can moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Your commitment and enthusiasm you exuded, and I'm sure that you've inspired a lot of our members to want to be more engaged with Visible Men Academy, and we look forward to working with you as you move toward the next phase of your project.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Hey, Jim, this is Mark. Can I take 2 minutes of the floor, if I may?
You're an institutional member. You get 2 minutes.
Okay.
He also has a connection to VMA, which I am anticipating he's going to share.
And I'll be brief. I am chair of the board for Visible Men Academy, and I'll tell you the reason why. Coming up in the next couple of weeks will be 2 years for me living here in Sarasota. Visible Men Academy was the first nonprofit organization that I decided to get involved with. And I can't tell you how proud and excited I was to meet, Neil and Lewis and the other co-founders of Visible Men Academy 2 years ago. And once I met those guys, specifically Lewis and Neil, who, these brothers are two highly educated Harvard educated Black men that have decided to come together, and build this school and support these boys in this community, which I think is just unheard of, around this country. And so when I saw that, I decided, yes, this is something that I can be involved with, because I saw two visible men right then and there that I wanted to emulate and be involved with. So that's the first point. The second point is that, as Neil mentioned, we are about to kick off our capital campaign, and I'm just going to keep it real. We need your support. We need all of your support. You know, as chair of the board, I'm asking you, you know, to give us your support, because we need it, because we've got some big things planned in the future. And it's, you know, we've got a long road ahead of us, but we're gonna do it, because we've got some major people that have come along on this ride with us. You know, for example, Ambassador Andrew Young, he has lended his support with us. And if you guys, some of you guys remember, we had him here several months ago, probably more than almost a year ago, for men's breakfast over at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. We also have our very own Dr. Clemens, who's on the call, I believe, as well, too, as a supporter. And so we've got some people that are helping us through this journey. And we would just love for you guys to come along and help us as well, too. And Neil, I'm glad you've made that decision that we're going to become institutional members. And so you guys will be hearing from us. And so I won't take up too much of your time, but just thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jim and Asala, for allowing us to have just a few minutes of your floor here. And we look forward to hearing from you guys in the future.
And thank you. And we look forward to working closely with VMAs as we move forward. All right, next are announcements. Dan Boxer, you're on.
Good morning. I got 9 more minutes. First of all, I want to second what Neil was saying and Mark. We have been supporters of VMA for a very long time, and it's amazing what they do. I'm actually I'm talking about the lynching memorial, which many of you know about, which is a memorial about those people lynched in Sarasota and Manatee that would come from the EJI. And I know that Jim has circulated information, and also we are so humble that Asala is supporting this. But what we would also like, we try to send emails, but we just couldn't send enough. We would love your individual support. For us to get the memorial and marker here is not a done deal. We really have to jump through some hoops to get EJI to support it. Pinellas County was able to get a marker and memorial, but we want some here to educate people about what went on here. So I'm asking you, either, if you're interested, obviously, to send an email either to me, which is I'll put it in the chat, dan@boxer.com, or just to Asala, to Jim, because he will then forward it. We would like to list you, not only Asala, list you individually as supporting this as part of our proposal to EJI. That's all. Thank you very much.
You can see that the town.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, but quickly, we did get a letter of support from the city of Sarasota yesterday.
Oh, wonderful.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Dan, is there a financial contribution to be a supporter?
No.
No.
Thank you, Penelope. No.
We absolutely.
No,
all
not
we
at
want
all.
is, obviously, there will be a financial component, but nothing like what Neil is looking for. This is basically to show EJI that we have wide community support, both from Manatee and from Sarasota.
Any other questions for Dan?
What is EJI?
What is EJI? That was my question.
It's the Equal Justice Institute Initiative. I apologize. It was started by Brian Stevenson. It's based in Montgomery, Alabama.
And Asala went there.
And Asala went there. Sherry Suggs organized an Asala visit.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. And it comprises 3 museums. One is a museum about the involving slavery involving criminal justice system and the whole history of what has been going on to people in this country. Then there is something called the Peace and Justice Memorial, which is basically a lynching museum. And what it is a building of about, I don't know, 200,000 square feet, where slabs are hung from a ceiling, which basically depict people that have been lynched. So there's one for each county, and in each county, they put the names of the people that were lynched, which include some that are, quote, unknown. Nobody's unknown, but that's what is written. And so I'm sure many of you have, we looked around and we found the lynching memorial for Manatee County, this great city of surf and whatever it is, sun and surf. There were 6 lynchings in Manatee. And I just want to point out that Sarasota was part of Manatee until 1921. And of the 6, 5 took place while Sarasota was part of Manatee. And we found out that it was possible to bring a duplicate, if you will, of this memorial to the local community. First with a marker, which is like somewhat we see as historical markers. And secondly, it is they will be bringing at some point, we don't know the date yet, a memorial, an actual slab. And there is also a soil collection project to bring soil collected from a lynching site, which is done here. The whole objective is to educate people what went on here. And we are so grateful and fortunate that our fellow member and I think future president, David Wilkins, has agreed to organize the educational portion of this. And we've had an incredible outpouring of support. I don't think we've gotten one refusal. Our objective is to get 100 organizations and 300 if individuals to support this. And we have about 50 to 60% of our way there. So it's totally nonpartisan, it's non-financial, but we want your support to let EJI know that you believe in what we're doing. And I will last add, the marker is intended to be placed at the new Sarasota African American Cultural Center. And we have agreement from SAC, and they're partnering with us as Newtown Alive is.
Thank you, Dan.
Jim?
Yes.
This is Dorothy Green. I want to say that that trip that we took that you were on, you might want to mention that Carl Sheffield, your wife, grandfather, great-grandfather, Margaret.
This is her grandfather.
My grandfather.
Okay, all right. Margaret, it's such a moving experience to be there. I've been to a lot of museums, but that one just made me buckle at my knees.
Yeah, there were like 60 of us that were on that trip.
Yes.
Very, very powerful. And in fact, I tried to get Sherry to organize another one for those who couldn't, but she after she got through beating me, I said, I give up.
I would go back again.
Okay. The other announcement on the agenda is the holiday brunch. We're going to do a virtual holiday brunch. Nick Walker is chairing that, and we have a committee that's in place to put that together. So if you would like to perform as part of the entertainment for the virtual holiday brunch, please get in touch with Nick or me. Dan mentioned the Museum Cultural Center. There is a formal agreement now to relocate the Leonard Reed House, which is currently in the Rosemary District, to a lot that's located at the intersection of Martin Luther King Drive and Orange that will serve as the temporary facility for the Museum Cultural Center. So I'll keep you apprised of the developments. That formal move will probably not occur for another 5 months or so, but once it does, it's in place and the remodeling is done, there'll be some type of grand opening, and hopefully we'll be able to do it physically if we have the pandemic under control. Are there any other announcements? If not, it's 12 o'clock.
Okay.
And it's time for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Don't move.
Returning member Phyllis has moved adjournment.
See, this is what happens when COVID is here. Nobody wants to leave.
I don't know what happened to my picture. I don't seem.
I see you.
We see you. We see you.
Second.
So the meeting is officially over, but please feel free to socialize as we.
I would just like to tell you something that is good news. You know, may I?
Please go ahead.
The letter that you wrote to the Board of Education, to the community about taking action. You know, that the community, the teachers in our community do need the kind of training that has been suspended or taken away by the new superintendent. Well, members of our church were given, well, members of the committee there were given copies of your letter, Jim, which was such a wonderful letter. And of course, the Peace and Justice Committee of our church has written a letter in support of what you presented. So that was some action that we did. That's the First Congregational United Church of Christ. We followed and supported what you did. We feel that teachers on all really do need that kind of training to teach our children here in Sarasota.
Well, that's wonderful news, and I hope that other organizations will follow. But I have to admit that that's really David's letter over my signature. So.
And we were wondering if you had received a response from the board.
Absolutely. So the most disappointing thing is that I've received no response from either the superintendent or the school board. So I'll be doing some follow-up.
We really need numbers of people to do that.
Yes.
Numbers.
I have a quick question. Will Asala have an appointment book for next year?
Yet to be determined. I still have the ones from for this year if you like one.
They're all off. I'm already confused.
Jim, I'm going to stop the recording unless you need me.
This is the best part.